I want to demo a program that I wrote that might be very useful to some of you folks in Fusion. So let's say I have a parameterized model. So I've already parameterized this in my sketch and it reflects in the actual model. And you can see that if I update this from 2.5 millimeters to say 2 millimeters, the model will update. Now, if I wanted to export a lot of different combinations, you see I already have 5 parameters here, a lot of different combinations of each one of these parameters, it can be very time consuming. So I would have to automatically update it here, click OK, go over, find the model that I wanted to export and export as a mesh file if I wanted STL, or even worse, go up here and export as a step file, which Fusion makes mind-numbingly difficult. So the program I wrote solves this issue and it exports them all in one. So I'm going to make one quick intermediate step here, which will be more clear later on, but I'm going to mark the part with the parameters that I have set. So if you can recall, I had, which you can do, if you didn't know you could do this, it's actually a helpful tip in itself. So I was adjusting the taper angle, which was 3 degrees, and then you have to click a little plus here, and then I could actually, in these brackets, I could type actual text, but I'm going to just enter because I want to do it on a new line, and then click the inner space because these are the 2 parameters that I'm really concerned with when I export these. So I'm going to make pretty small, put them up here, out of the way, towards the top, and then you can mark your model. So now, for one, you can see that if I update the model from 2 millimeters down to 1 millimeter, it will reflect. And this is a good example to show you that it doesn't always beautifully reflect. So I'm going to put that back to 2. So now, if you go, and I'll put a link to this GitHub script in the description, you'll go and you'll just download the zip file for this repository. And then if you'll go, you'll see this zip file in your downloads, and then all you're going to do is copy that folder. You'll have to extract it because it's a zip file, and copy the folder into this file pathway, which is hidden pretty deep in the Fusion app files, app data, but your directory will look something like this. You can also put it in the add-ins folder, and that will have it work just fine. A slight nuance between add-ins and scripts means that you should probably put it in scripts. It's a little more fitting to what the program does. And once you do that, that program will automatically load into Fusion when you start it. You can see, so if we go to add-ins, we have this program up and running. Great. So let's go ahead and run that program. Here in the program, we have 3 main sections, so I'll go step by step. The first is choosing the parameters we actually want to reflect in this bulk export process. For me, I'm just focusing on these first 2, inner space and taper angle, because those are what I'm focusing on. Those are the parameters that are marked on the model and the parameters that I want to change as I export. Down here in bodies, you can choose to export any body or combination of bodies in the workspace during this process. Not all of these are relevant. For example, some of these ones are part of this deployer component, which actually have nothing to do with my parameters that I have selected. So if I change these parameters, neither of these bodies would update. They would look exactly the same. You still have the option to export them, but it's essentially useless because you would be exporting the same body for every single file. In my case, I'm just going to select this one body that we have marked. Make sure you get the file name right from your workspace, but for me, that's what matters. One other thing up here, so I'm exporting between 2 and 4. So I want the inner space to be between 2 and 4. Better yet, 2 and 3, and I want there to be 5 steps in between them. I also want to change the taper angle to be between 1 degree and 5 degrees, and I want 4 of those. So now when we export, inner space will change between 2 and 3 in 5 increments. Taper angle will change between 1 and 5 in 4 increments, and every combination of those 2 parameters will export as this body, which will also be marked and reflected. So down here you get to choose what file format. I'm going to stick to STL, And then the folder you want all these files to export to, which for me is just this file in the desktop. You can change the name. I usually don't do this. I usually keep it by default, but for the sake of the demo, I'm going to say Ryan's part, and then the taper angle, and then I also want the inner space. And this is helpful. It gives you an example of what the file name might look like. This is really helpful if you want to know what each file represents. So if you didn't have this marked and you wanted to open a file knowing exactly what that file, the parameters that file was saved under, this is a great way to do that. So double check everything. Everything looks good. This is telling me it's going to output 20 files in total, which is fine with me. It shouldn't take too long. So I'm going to go ahead and click export, and you'll see once I agree to this, it will begin changing and exporting every combination of those parameters that I input in, which is useful for testing. So maybe I'm using this for finite element analysis. Maybe I'm doing what I'll show you, and I'm just going to go 3D print them, but all in one process. Okay. So now I'm going to go into Cura, and you'll see here are all my parts that I just exported in the file name that I described. But I'm just going to import all of these because maybe I wanted to, I'm just 3D printing them all. I'm going to use them all, see what works best for my application, and then have that reflect in my finalized model. And each of these is marked accordingly. So after I 3D printed it, I know which corresponds to which parameter. As I say, you can also use this for other things like finite element analysis. I hope this tool is useful. I hope you get some traction out of it. Thank you for watching.